Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, the full audio for the interviews that the Department of Justice did with Ghislaine Maxwell have been released, and they're just coming out now. Some media outlets may have gotten them a little bit earlier, but I know it's late. I'm going to go ahead and play some of these things, and we can think about it as we kind of go through. If you want to jump in and kind of share your thoughts on what we're hearing on this or other stuff, all you got to do, go to, it's in the description of the live stream here, but go to guest.politicalcow.com and that will redirect you to our live call-in line. You don't have to show your cell phone camera, but guest.politicalcow.com, and that should take you there. So go check that out. Interested in taking some phone calls, see what people think. But let's get this audio going, and we'll stop at some critical junctures as we go through here and get some feedback. And remember, they're going to tell her what her rights are here right up front, that she does not have to answer any questions necessarily. This is not something that they're going to be able to hold against her unless certain things happen. She starts to, if there's any perjury, anything like that involved, then, there might be a slippery slope that starts to happen at that point. But otherwise, she is in the clear to say whatever she wants. So if she has something on her mind, this would be the time for her to say it. So let's get this audio going. And again, it's just audio tapes that have been published with a little montage with help of some AI on on like a best of. But let's get this going.
Is being recorded.
And my name is Todd Blanche. I'm the Deputy Attorney General. And before we start formally asking questions of Ms. Maxwell, I'm going to put on the record everybody that's in this room in addition to me. Starting with you, Diego.
Diego Pistana, Associate Deputy Attorney General.
And then you heard from Special Agent in Charge Horn. Mark Beard from the United States Marshal Service is here as well. And then David.
Yes, this is David Oscar Marcus, and I'm counsel for Ghislaine Maxwell.
My name is Leah Sapian, and I'm counsel for Ghislaine Maxwell.
My name is Melissa Madrigal, and I'm counsel for Ghislaine Maxwell.
Go ahead.
And I'm Ghislaine Maxwell.
Good morning, Ms. Maxwell. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Blanche.
Good. Okay, so before we started recording, we met for a few minutes. I introduced myself and we chatted, and now I told you that we were going on the record. And before we start asking questions, I know that you've been given by your lawyer a copy of what's called a proffer agreement. And I just want to spend 2 minutes making sure that you understand what governs our conversation today. The most important part of this agreement is that this isn't a cooperation agreement, meaning that by you meeting with us today, we're really just meeting. I'm not promising to do anything. I'm not promising to ask Judge Nathan or any of the judges that have been assigned to your case to do anything. We're just talking. And so that's the most important part of this agreement. However, almost as important is the fact that what this agreement does for you is it gives you protection. So what it means is that the government cannot use what you say today against you, with some exceptions, which we'll talk about in a minute. But whatever you talk about today, you have what's called immunity. So that means that the words that you say today, we cannot use against you in a case in chief if we were ever to bring one. Okay?
Thank you.
There's exceptions to that. The most meaningful one of which is that if you say something today that's not true, that's a lie, we can bring a prosecution against you for what's called false statements. So I'm a federal officer. I have several officers here. The FBI is here. And if you lie to someone that's like me or like Special Agent Horn, it's a crime. So you have to be truthful. The other exception to this that doesn't necessarily apply directly to you, but if there ever was a retrial in your case, or if there ever was a criminal case, a future criminal case against you, and your lawyer or you said something different or took a position that's different than what you say today, we can then cross-examine you or a witness based upon what you say today. So it's a little bit nuanced, meaning I can't use what you say against you in our case in chief. However, if you were to testify, or if your lawyer called a witness to testify, and they said something that is totally different than what you say today, we could then cross-examine you or the witness and say, hey, do you remember when we met with Miss Maxwell back in July of 2025? She told us, and then say what she said. Okay.
I understand.
Okay. Other than that, I know you didn't have a lot of time this morning to meet with Mr. Marcus, but did you have a chance to go over this briefly with him?
I did.
Okay. All right. So I've already signed it, as has Special Agent Warren, and Mr. Marcus signed it as well. So you got a pen? Please sign it right where it says clients. Yep. And I will provide a copy of this to your lawyer so you guys have it. Okay. Thank you. So, Ms. Maxwell, about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago,
You see the right pointing on there? On the Sony. Yeah, there it is.
okay, we're just confirming that it works, and it does. Ms. Maxwell, I guess about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, Mr. Marcus reached out to me and said that you wanted to speak with somebody from the government about not only your case, but about everything that's been in the media and that's been publicized about Mr. Epstein in your case.
That is true, and I did speak to him, and I did ask him if, or I did tell him that I was very keen to talk to anyone, because no one from the government at any time ever since the inception of the case, so dating back to the early 2000s, has ever spoken to me, and indeed, I believe ever reached out to me at any time to even speak to me, and that includes up to when I was indicted and prosecuted. I believe that, or I understand, I should say, rather, that my attorneys at the time did tell the government that I wanted to speak to them, because I was very keen to meet with anyone so that I could tell or have them ask me any question. I've never had any problem just to speak to anybody, and I offered myself, and I kept asking if they would meet with me so that I could talk to them, and for whatever reason, that was not happening.
Okay. I have questions that I want to ask you, but I'm not, if there's a question that I'm not asking that you think should be asked, I invite you to volunteer. Same thing goes to your lawyers. Just to start a little bit, very briefly, can you talk about when you first met Mr. Epstein? I know that goes back a while. And just very generally talk about your relationship with Mr. Epstein from the time you met him all the way up until his death.
I met Mr. Epstein in 1991. I'd never heard of him or met him before, and no one in my family had ever either. My father never knew him, and I'll explain why that is the case.
Where did you meet him?
I had a girlfriend who I had moved to America briefly I moved to America in 1990.
Okay.
Moved, that's a bit right. I'd come to visit America in 1990. I had been running my own company up until that time, which was a company called Maxwell's Corporate Gifts. And I had also been working for my father at the time. I've had multiple jobs with him. I was, in 1990, I was working with a new company of his, a new newspaper that he was launching called The European. And I was in charge of launching a magazine to go with the European. And I was traveling at that time from England to America because my father was looking to, well, he'd also bought Macmillan, the publishing house, and he had purchased the New York Daily News. And it's true that my father always wanted me to come back full time and work for him, but that's a much longer story. I don't think we need to go into it this time. So, but I was always working with him. Well, there was no escaping, if it were, as it were, to work for him. So, in 1990, I had come over to New York to help look at some of that. He was having some advertising issues with the New York Daily News, and in fact, I may have met Donald Trump at that time because my father was friendly with him and liked him very much. And I think it should be said that he also very much liked Ivana, because she was also from Czechoslovakia, where my dad was from. So I don't remember if I did meet him or not in 1990 with my dad, but I knew that that's how I knew about Mr. Trump.
And this was before you met.
This is
So you hear her mentioning that there was a Donald Trump event that had happened. Let's pay close attention to the language she uses in referring to him and involvement or connections or any of that.
before I met Mr. Epstein. Yes. So I was already going backwards and forwards in America, and then in April of 1991, I came to New York. I can't remember for what reason, what business reason, but there was a business reason, something to do with my dad at that time. And a girlfriend of mine, who an American, told me I broken up with I've been engaged, getting with a very long-term boyfriend, and we broke.
Overruling. Hold on, we gotta read this one out loud. Let me get over here. Overruling. Streamlabs, there's no way you think this guy is a good creator. Well, you know, Donald Trump has created a lot of things. He's built a lot of real estate out there. A lot of the New York skyline is thanks to him. I'd say you might be wrong on that one. So, anyway, let's get back to it.
So I got, as your girlfriends do, I got a guy for you to meet. And I was like, who is it? And she goes, he's been dating my sister, and you'll love him. He's looking for a wife. I'm edging towards 30. I don't need to tell you guys that's a very important moment for a girl, just to think about important things. Sure, I'd be happy to meet him. And so sometime in 1991, we're in 1991, I met him at his offices on Madison. And I think the most memorable thing I can think about that is he was wearing a tie, which he didn't often do, and it had a giant tomato ketchup stain in it. So I was like, wow, okay. And that was how we met.
Was your meeting at his office for you to meet him just personally, or were you there for work-related reasons?
No, well, I knew nothing about him. He just invited me to come and have tea. And I was like, tea, that's English, okay. But what was unusual was in his offices. So I went to his offices and we met. And I found him very engaging, and that was that.
So, okay, so that's how you meet him. So, and again, I don't want to spend a lot of time, on this particular issue, but what happened with your relationship over the years from the time you meet him in 1991 up until the time he passed away? Just give the highlights.
Okay, so I was looking for real estate for my dad to buy some, and Epstein told me that he was also looking to move from his apartment, and would I help him? And I said, sure, I'm looking already, so I could look for him. So that's how it started. And then in 1991, my father passed away, and I returned to New York after that, originally to come back and help with family businesses, which was Macmillan. And then the debacle of my father's passing hit the family, and we lost all our businesses, and my family thought that it would be best if I stayed in America because of the intensity of the press and the drama surrounding my father's death in England. So I stayed, and Epstein said, well, you can keep helping me, you can help me find that house, and we can decorate the house, and it gave me something to do.
Were you in a romantic relationship with him at this point, or just
No,
friends?
Just friends.
And while we're just, with respect to your father, there have been multiple questions about whether he worked for any intelligence agency. Do you have any knowledge about that?
I think, well, certainly my father had a background in intelligence because he was, I believe he did in the Second World War. He was a British intelligence officer. I think that my sort of belief is that once you've been an intelligence officer, you're kind of always, it doesn't mean that you're formally employed. So I don't think my dad in any formal sense was, employed by any agency. But when you are a very significant businessman and politician, as my father was, you meet with people over time and you, I guess, trade business or ideas. I think it's that would fall under that definition. That's how I would think.
Thank you to the new
Certainly,
subscriber there. This fell off the
I
screen.
have
I didn't
no
quite catch it.
formal knowledge of anything
Rakita
specific
Klein,
that
thank
he
you.
did in that thing, but if you're asking me if I thought that he did help people, the answer would be yes, I do.
Did your father and Mr. Epstein have a business relationship over the years? I know we're maybe jumping around a little bit, but
They never met. So
as far as you know, they never even met.
no, I
Or you know they never met.
I know they never met.
Well, how do you know they never met?
Thank you. Just categorically, no, they never met. Well, because after, in 1991, before my father died, he asked me if I'd met anybody interesting or whatever, because I was still
Appreciate that, barman.
trying not to be sucked back into the family business. And I told him that I had met Mr. Epstein, and the reason why I shared that I'd met Mr. Epstein because I believed at that time that Epstein worked for Bear Stearns, and Bear Stearns was one of our banks. And I knew that my father was friendly with both Jimmy Kane and with Ace Greenberg. So my dad was actually in New York, I think. If I don't think I had this conversation on the phone, but I honestly been talking 30 years ago, so I'm not sure. But maybe I told him this verbatim because I know that what my dad did, whether I saw it or whether he did it and told me later, I don't remember. But he called both Jimmy Kane and Ace Greenberg to ask what sort of guy he was and was he even allowed to. Because so
They never met.
He didn't even know.
But they knew some of the same people. It sounds like, or certainly the Bear Stearns connection was something that you knew that they had.
No, well, he never had a connection with Epstein. He had a connection with the bank. I mean, Epstein, I'd never heard of him or knew of him before, and I certainly, if my dad had known him, right, when I said this is who he was, he didn't know who he was. So he rang Ace and he rang Jimmy to ask if it was okay that I even knew him. And I just want to explain briefly why my father would even do such a thing. Sorry. I've had some interesting things that have happened in my life, and one of them was to be found on an IRA kidnap and murder list. And so after that happened, well, there were other related, I'm not going to bore you with all the horrible things in that vein, but if you want the details, of course, I can. But after that happened, my father wanted to put a lot of protection on this, and I declined on the grounds that would be a very life-restricting event. You're all in law enforcement, I know you understand this. And so he had told me, like, you know,
Lydia, appreciate
I would
that.
be taking my life in my own hands and then whatever. And so I think after that event and several others where I had stalkers and all that thing that one has, he was always quite protective of me. And so if I met somebody, he would try and verify that they weren't going to do anything hideous. And so and several others, in case you thought it was weird that he would call Jimmy and Ace, it might, you may think it is, but from my perspective, he was just because he was concerned. I was in America alone, and he had an opportunity to verify who this person was. And so I don't know if I was in the room with him, but I know that at some point my father told me, he's fine, you can see it,
Yeah.
he's safe.
Okay.
Well, okay.
So we might come back and touch a little bit more on that at some point, but
Yeah,
I went down a rabbit hole for a minute.
that's all right. I just wanted to.
Father. No, that's helpful. Thank you. So, okay, so you're now in the 90s and you're friends with Mr. Epstein, it's your house, decorating the house or the apartment. What happened with your relationship again? I know we're talking about a 35-year time period or whatever, but to the extent you can kind of at a very high level
That's-
talk about it.
Listen, I think just full disclosure is the best way to go at this point.
Yeah.
So in 1992, I slept with him one time. And I was like, oh, that's it. We're going to be dating. Because that's how I thought. And I kind of thought of myself in that moment, like, because I thought if you slept with somebody,
Andrea, thanks for the subscribe.
dating them.
Yeah.
That's the world I came from. But that really was, well, that's how I thought. But we didn't sleep together again for, I don't know, really a significant period of time. And when I
Like
say
years or?
Thanks for the follow.
I don't know
Appreciate
if you
that,
think,
Wanda.
yeah. I don't feel that feels long, but maybe 9 months. I mean, a long time.
Okay.
I just want to go back. So I had found a house for him to rent in New York because he had asked me. I'd been looking on it for my father, and I found one, which was a former Iranian embassy. I think it was. I think it belonged to the Iranians or the Iraqis. Someone.
Okay.
And I didn't know that he had any money. And it was like, I want to say it was $12,000 a month, which to me seemed like a fortune. And I said to myself, I found this house, but I don't think you can afford it. It's ridiculous. Of course I can afford any rent. And that house came with, it was a State Department house because it was, I think it was under sequestration or whatever it was. And I put it back together, but there were certain rules you couldn't paint because you had to go back, and you gave it back to the country that. So he had this house, and I had moved into a 10-foot by 10-foot apartment because all of our stuff had been either lost or frozen or whatever. So he became, in this moment, my life really, because I was like, everything was, it felt very similar to this man, if that makes sense. Anyway, so, but I had no key to his house. I had no free access to his house. And in the entire time that he lived there, which was, I believe, until the beginning of 1996, I never slept a single night in his house. Ever. Not once.
But so you said a minute ago that that you had slept with him on one occasion, and at the time you remember thinking, that this meant you were in a relationship, but then it didn't. You really were not in that type of relationship.
Well, I thought,
Did that change over between 91 and 92 or whatever, and years forward?
so I did.
There we go, no reply. I fixed the title.
So I would go to his houses in Palm Beach. He only had that house actually. No, that's not true. He had the house in Palm Beach, and he had a house in Ohio.
In where?
Ohio.
Okay.
And he had the house in Ohio because of his business relationship with Mr. Wexler. And he had and I had to go and decorate and put that house together.
Oh,
When we
just
traveled
missed that.
together,
Thanks for the subscription there.
We
Whoever that was.
stayed in the same, but not in, but I didn't,
go ahead. It's okay. Talk. So you stayed. So when you would travel with him to his house is in Palm Beach, Ohio, or even just traveling, if it was just traveling with him, you would stay in the same bed. So sleep in the same bed with him.
Yes.
Okay.
Epstein told me that he had a heart condition.
A what?
Heart condition.
Heart condition. Okay.
Which meant that he didn't have intercourse a lot, which suited me fine, because I actually do have a medical condition, which precludes me having a lot of intercourse.
So what was your understanding of his heart condition and why that prevented him from having intercourse regularly?
I mean, he liked other forms of sexual activity.
Well, let's come back. We're going to obviously spend a lot of time on the actual conduct he was accused of. So we'll come back to that. So pick up where you were talking about you traveling around with him. He rented the New York former Iranian house
Iranian, yeah.
until around 96. That time, I believe you said that he was basically your life, like you were with him pretty regularly.
Well, no.
Okay.
So I never was with him regularly. That is one of those misnomers. I mean, at the beginning, I did see more of him, but I worked in his office. So I would go to the office and I would see him. And I would count in my head when I would see him, I would count that that'd be a day that I would see him. But I never ever stayed with him. I believe, certainly until 92 or 94, what I didn't know was that I think he was still with his actual girlfriend, who was Eva Anderson, who became Eva Jubilee. They had been together, my understanding, I think about 10 years. I'm not sure, but that's what I think.
I appreciate
10
the
years.
donation, Cargie.
And I had understood from my girlfriend initially that they weren't together, and Epstein himself had told me that they were not together, but I don't think that was true. In fact, I know it's not true. So they were still together up until I think 94, when at some point in that period when Eva met Glenn Dubin and they got married. I think in 94, I don't remember when they got married, but her, she was his best friend and his everything. He told me that he always wished that he had married her and had a child with her. And I know that she was family for his whole life. And I think even, I'm not sure this is true, but you guys will know if this is true or not. When he came back from Paris and you arrested him, I don't know if Eva was on the plane. Now, I think that either I read it in the discovery that I received, or I saw it somewhere. But even if she wasn't on the plane, there must have been some email communication.
Yeah, I saw some comments that I should take a look at the mic. I've had some technical challenges and have moved streaming service providers, so I haven't nailed down the audio and everything quite yet. This just popped up, so I wanted to kind of listen in and kind of get feedback from folks. And again, if you want to join in, guest.politicalcow.com. Come in, share your piece. We don't have to argue. I'm just interested in your perspective. I want to make sure that's visible to folks. Guest.politicalcow.com should be pinned on the chat.
Where she was in Paris at the same time and going to fly back. One or the other. I don't know which one is the correct version of that. But
Barbara,
so
thanks
they
for
were
the
still
subscribe.
obviously very close and remained throughout the entire time. He was still her love. And so I also know now, which I didn't know at the time, was that he saw lots of other women. And I know that now because I can see it from the flight logs. And I know it now because I can see from the emails.
So you know from the case
Yes,
that
not from-
what happened.
Yes, I
You
didn't know.
that along the way.
Contemporaneously, I absolutely didn't know.
So, okay, so just, and we're going to spend time on everything you're talking about, but just to kind of close out big picture, your relationship. So we're now in the late 90s. Continue on with, again, staying high level to the extent you can about your relationship with him.
So my responsibilities increased with each acquisition that he had and each new project. So I believe the first thing that he purchased after was the ranch in New Mexico.
Okay.
And so what he had tasked me with up until that, and I think that was purchased in 94, if I'm right. So he had tasked me, one of the things that we did was visit, in my mind I say every state, but it wouldn't have been every state, but many states, to go look at real estate and property. And so I know we went to Montana, I know we went to Utah, and it was to go look at real estate. It was fun, to be honest. And then I arranged for us to go to New Mexico, and he just loved New Mexico. And then I don't remember how the ranch happened. I don't remember that, now it's lost. And then he ended up buying the ranch, and I think, if I'm right, it came from the kings who may have been the governor. I bought the ranch, and then I had to deal with that. And dealing with that was extensive. I mean, the way that I thought of myself, or the way that I think is the best way to explain how I view my role, was as a general manager, because each property to me was like a hotel. So the ranch was very challenging, because not only that, but it had BLM land. So to maintain your BLM, you had to have cattle. And I love animals, and so the first thing, horses, and so I wanted it. If you're going to have a ranch, I like authenticity, so I don't think we should have a ranch if we're not going to have the things that make it special.
So were you paid by him along the way?
So I
time?
became salaried at some point. My memory is that I got paid $25,000 a year to begin with. That's my memory. I may be wrong. And then with each, as it became more obvious, because I kept thinking I was going to have a home being in it. And, but it.
Did you?
And guys, I'm looking at the bot setting because there's no reason that a long message should be getting flagged. I think I went with the overly conservative filtering just to make sure everything stays clean. We got to protect the platform, you know what I'm saying? So feel free to keep speaking. I'm gonna just kind of look for where that setting is that's telling it to dismiss long comments.
And financially, you were not relying on him. The $25,000 or whatever amount you were paid, were you relying on that money to live and his generosity to live, or did you have your own money?
So there's a.
And again, I want to just make sure we're talking about like keeping it between like the late 90s, maybe I guess into a little the 2000s.
I just want to hit something on the head right now. There's a tremendous amount of reporting that said that I had a trust fund. I have never had a trust at any time.
So how did you live? Did you live with I mean, 25,000 is not enough to live on.
No. So I had, during this period of time, the the Serious Fraud Squad had come to see me in relation to my father's passing, and to establish whether I had been
If
involved.
you guys are wondering,
in any way
Grok
with
actually helped me
his, business
put
or
together
with
some of
any
these short clips. I thought they were kind of amusing.
I've told the story many times, so I don't know if it's now somewhat hypocritical, but I'll tell you what my memory is. So I received a letter from them that said, I can't go about my business. And my memory, maybe hypocritical, was a PS that said, I used Snow White's cousin. I had nothing. I was never involved in any of his business, whatever, so I was free. And
But you're, obviously your father and your family had a lot of businesses. Is it because the money, whatever money or whatever equity was in the businesses, just stayed with your other family members?
no,
Beerman, I don't
no
think
money.
that's true.
So my father was never attached to money. He was born a peasant, but a real one. Dirt floor, no shoes, no clothes. Some clothes, but not, sorry, I don't mean to say. And nothing. And he was never into that. I mean, there were things that he had his extravagances. He loved his boat and his plane. So obviously you need money for that, but there was nothing else. And there was not a single penny that came to any of us at any time, ever.
Okay, so when you're talking
and I met someone that I fell very much in love with in 2003.
Looks like we have reached a redacted portion. Bear with me to get back going again.
And also my relationship with a French decorator was critical to him. In the French component part of that aspect was really vital, and so you'd have had to find someone who was, well, actually, and Spanish, trilingual. You would have had to find someone who was trilingual and that he trusted
did you
to not steal from him.
did you so when he gets out of jail between that time 2009 or 10 and 2019, what's your relationship like with Mr. Epstein?
Almost non-existent.
Why?
I had just moved on, and I just didn't want to have anything. I didn't want the drama. I didn't want to be associated with.
So do you recall when you say almost non-existent, does that mean
Doesn't mean it
some
was
phone calls, some visits, some trips, or what does it mean?
I don't think there were any trips. Oh, I don't think so.
Where were you living during that time period, or was it
Which time period?
between 2009, 10, and 2019?
I was back in New York.
Okay. So you had no, so you had phone calls with him on occasion?
Yes. Well, I certainly did whenever there was any legal drama or any like serious press attention, I always called him to try and find out what was going on.
Okay. Okay.
And I did email him at that time for those types of details. I was like, what do I do? I was like...
And then when he's charged in New York federally, how did you learn about that case?
In the press.
And had you, as far as you know, been contacted by law enforcement before his arrest?
No. I wasn't in an indictment.
No, I know that, but
Oh.
even as a witness or asking you if you would give documents or materials.
I had never, up until when my lawyers said that, I don't even know, I had no knowledge of them being interested in me. Honestly, I want to say until he had died. Now, I know that my lawyers were in touch with at some point after his arrest. I'm pretty sure that had to have happened, right?
Okay.
But my understanding is that they had not shown any interest. I know my lawyers went to see them once, I believe. And
Went to see him, meaning Mr. Epstein?
no, them, the Southern District of New
Okay,
York.
the Sons of New York.
Sorry. And that they had been in regular and I believe that they had told them so, and were absolutely stunned when I was arrested. Maybe I say was.
So that was a question of was very light. So I went back more about particular areas and a very helpful case for us. The first I want to talk about you early on, Mr. Epstein's financial. Know how when you first at some point you say I got this place for rent, he goes to second. What about his wealth and how he accumulated his money?
I'll tell you what he told me.
Yes.
So I know that he was hired from working at a school who's in a He was working as a math and